thank you for joining me here on the Big Ugly Jim Show, whatever we want to call this. Unrelenting yammerings. Who knows? Who knows? So I just this morning I watched a debate that Dylan Burns put out. We're not going to watch the debate together because it's like 3 hours long. That seems like a long commitment. But the debate, one of the topics was should we protect the sanctity of the nuclear family? And I think that's an interesting conversation because I don't think that the nuclear family should be sanctified. When we're talking about the nuclear family, what we're specifically talking about is the man and the woman and the babies. That is the traditional conservative Christian kind of view of the nuclear family. It's a new thing. In fact, if we jump to our browser view, so, let's head on over to Google and find out, when was nuclear family? When was the term coined? I don't think it was invented. When was the term coined? Early 20th century. So this isn't even a long time thing. And I feel like the image of the nuclear family isn't a negative one. I'm not like we must destroy family because when you have emotional reactions to other people that it's bad and we only work for the state. I don't mean that shit at all. And that's just ridiculous. I was raised in a traditional family. I had a mommy and a daddy, and they lived together in love. And I had a sister and me, and we lived in a home and all that stuff. I have nothing against the idea of a nuclear family. Where my concern lies is the concept of protecting the nuclear family, because this is a bullshit thing. No one's attacking the nuclear family, at least as far as I can see. I've never heard of a scenario where the nuclear family was actually under threat of being canceled or being destroyed or whatever. In the debate, one of the guys made comments about how BLM wants to destroy the family and all this shit, and they're not even remotely true, right? Those are just some right-wing dude parroting something that he heard on the interwebs one day, and full of shit. But the idea of the protected class of the nuclear family is an important thing. There is legislation that does things like promotes the idea that you should stay married because you will have more access to certain tax benefits and things like that. Having children for tax benefits and for things like that. Those are very weird and detrimental to me. I get where it comes from. We have this 1950s glory view of life and family and wonderful. And there is nothing wrong with that. Like I said, that was the environment I grew up in, and I'm super grateful that I did. My childhood was fucking awesome. But my childhood is not all childhoods. A lot of people, in fact, my sister and I often joke about how we felt like we were the dysfunctional family because our family was functional. It felt weird to me growing up when and where I did, which was not like in poor people town, but very middle class environment. Most of my friends had a mom's house and a dad's house. Most of my friends, were products of split families. And it was weird to me, they used to refer to my parents as the Waltons because it was so bizarre that there was this couple that were like married still and like clearly loved each other. Which is weird and creepy. Like I personally like the idea of what my parents had. It's not the life for me, but I think that there's nothing wrong with it. The problem I have is that we often denigrate other kinds of families, and the obvious one would be the gay marriage thing, right? So if gay people have adopt a child, and that particular commenter on the or not commenter, that particular debater in Dylan's debate was very quick to cherry pick data to imply that research had found that people who grew up in a traditional nuclear family with biological parents were somehow better off. I don't buy that. I think that is a line of what the French would call le poppycock. In reality, I think that it's completely incorrect. I think that the thing that makes a family successful, and that by virtue of supporting the idea of the traditional family and the biology perspective, is love. The love that people have for the children. I don't think in the case of adoption that's any less true. I think that, for example, if two gay men or two gay women adopt a child, cool. They will love the shit out of that child. That's a good thing. And it's completely laughable to me to think that wouldn't be the case. I would bet good money that the love and support in a home where adoption was the factor is probably even greater than your sort of mean average. Not that you can mathematically quantify love or support, but I would guarantee you that people don't get gay married and adopt a child because one of them got pregnant and that's the only good reason they have for getting married. That's not a thing that is even remotely real. So the decision to be married and the decision to have a child are probably much more considered on the whole than your average family. Now again, that doesn't mean that the shotgun wedding folks are having a miserable life or miserable children. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that could be a thing. Hey, Kitty Jerkface, how you doing? I was listening to Big Papa Fascist debating this shit recently. I almost instantly roar when I came in. Yeah, Big Papa Fascist has all kinds of neat takes on things. I've got to a point now where I'm like, I just don't want to watch debates if there's BPF or the Groypers. So I never watch, like, Politically Provoked always has Groypers on, and I just can't stand it. And when the Groypers aren't on, they have Big Papa Fascist. And sometimes they have Big Papa Fascist debate the Groypers. And it's just like, there's not enough hot water in the world to clean the body after that. A lot of the debate really weirdly was focused on, like, it just sounded like they were missing the point. They kept talking about the economics of, like, of course, two incomes are better than one. Two caregivers are better than one. And I was like, what about eight? You're arguing that the nuclear family is in some way beneficial versus, other, but other's pretty blanket. So if you're saying that economically and in case of child caring and all that kind of stuff, that a two-person family is better than a one-person family, and you can provide statistical evidence that shows that outcomes are improved, that's great. That doesn't mean that five people raising a kid isn't even better. So that means that wouldn't look like the traditional family. Likewise, if we're talking about single parents, there may very well be some data that you can look at and have a valid statement that single parenting does often coincide with worse outcomes. And the arguments that were presented were like, the one person has to work a lot more and can't spend as much time paying attention to the children, and there's not that extra person to pay attention to the children, so that makes sense. And my reaction to that is, so fix the system. If we're in a situation where every single human being was that's in a single family home, is whether accurate or not, is in some way disadvantaged as a result, then incentivize support for people who are in that situation, people who are single parents. I'm a single parent, and my kids have done very well living with me. They are not perfect, but no kids are. A triad could have a dual income and a stay-at-home parent. That already sounds better to me. Absolutely, absolutely. Kitty. It makes no sense to pretend that the only way that you could have two income or you know a stable environment would be if one person and this other person and they had to be gendered the same and they had to be biological parents like that. That's just silly. You turned out fine. Yeah, you did. And a lot of people do, right? Like I said, I came from a very traditional family in that sense, and I came out fine also. Statistically, there, you know, the CDC's done studies and has found that, yeah, there is a correlation in terms of outcomes when it comes to dual parent homes versus single parent homes. That doesn't mean every single dual parent home is going to be better than every single parent home, of course. But by and large, the educational and economic outcomes tend to be better. That just tells me we should be doing stuff to support people because the whole point of this should be to make sure that the child has the best possible outcome. It shouldn't be to promote a particular type of family. It should be to care about the children. Won't somebody please think of the children, he said in his best Mrs. Lovejoy voice. That just feels like a no-brainer. And I legit don't understand how the people on the panel were not getting that sort of instinctively. Like, you know, yeah, if we have data that says that single parent families are not having as good outcomes, cool. Why? Could it be that the issue is that the support for people who are going through that isn't there, and that people who, you know, have an easier time, who have two incomes, or whether it's one person stays home, or all that kind of shit. Cool, you know, that to me is not an answer. That's a start of a bunch more questions where we can look at the data and say, okay, do we either pretend head in sand that people are just going to stop having divorces, or do we say, hey, we need to make sure that people going through this have support in place? Do we look at it and say, why are people having shorter relationships? Why are people ending their relationships, even you know, family relationships? Because I think those are important questions, and I support the idea of easy access to divorce, because a lot of people are in shitty situations. If you are, for example, someone with an abusive partner, leaving that situation is good. Staying there with your child is bad. Not necessarily bad like I'm condemning you, but bad like that's awful that you have to go through that. And the easiest thing, pardon me, I love the smoke in the air. It's really helping me. The easiest thing to do is to look at that data and just extrapolate from it and come up with further investigations about how can we support people better. That should be the point, not this ridiculous like, well, you know, the data says that people whose mommy and daddy is their bio mommy and bio daddy and they all live in the same house is better, so we'll just do that. Because that is not the world. The world does not work that way. So I found it really bizarre, just focusing so much on the outcomes and this particular data set from the CDC that showed, you know, very clearly showed an answer to the question, but doesn't answer everything. It just answers, you know, like as soon as they started talking about it, I was like, well, why? Why do they have better outcomes? They always forget about homosexual penguins who adopt the orphans. Yep, absolutely. Even though homosexual does not occur in nature, it totally occurs in nature all the fucking time. And in the case of penguins, there's like a whole awesome thing about it where penguins will like adopt essentially orphan children. And I think other animal species do that as well. Penguins are just ones that we can sort of immediately point to. But a lot of animal species have communal parenting. A lot of animal species have, large groups that work together for the common good. kind of like a polyamorous relationship. And sometimes animals aren't even married. Weird. So if you ask me, the unnatural thing is the idea that we should be isolated from our communities and that the sole responsibility for raising our children is on the parents. And if anything happens in that relationship, that they're just fucked, and that we should allow for these negative outcomes, right? If, let's just say, you're married happily and then your partner dies, is it just reasonable that because you made the decision to marry someone who would eventually die, that your child should have less opportunity? I don't feel like it is. I don't feel like that's a society that I would want to live in. So that's a thing. And I believe there are studies that have looked at this whole two-parent thing and gone with the approach of looking at like gay parents, looking at two people raising a child that though they are not in a romantic relationship, all of these kinds of things, and found that those outcomes were very similar. So it's not necessarily that the nuclear family, as we talk about it, is in any way a benefit. It's simply that we know that the more love, the more financial stability, the more attention, all of those things, the better our outcomes are. So let's just do those things. We don't have to, when we talk about supporting the nuclear family, what we're talking about is specifically encouraging people to do a thing that maybe isn't the right answer for them, implying that it's somehow better, and then hoping for the best, I guess. I don't see where we go from there. For those that's not the case, right? If I had stayed with my ex-wife, we were both not happy. Our children would have experienced the joys of growing up in a loveless relationship. Now my children live with me. They see who I am. They understand the situation that we all went through together, and they get it. And they understand and love, and they are showered with love, even though I don't have, well, I wouldn't say I shower them with love. I'm also, I got my own emotional hang-ups there. But I do my best to show them that I care and to do the things that need to get done and to love them unconditionally. And I think they know that. If they don't, then, hey kids, Dad loves you unconditionally. I still remember Sargon yelling, "Why don't they just get married?" as a solution to the issues black people face. That's such a canard. First off, of course, Sargon of Akkad. Just a sad boy with nothing but bitterness. Like, I don't know how you live your life as Sargon of Akkad. I really don't. It's cool he's not watching right now because he doesn't know I exist, and I'm fine with that. Sargon is a bitter Billy bitch cakes, and he's one of those people who just takes these ridiculous puritanical views of all the things that just, his opinion is always right. So yeah, why don't they just get married as a solution to the issues black people face? I see this all the time in debates where people go, the problem with the blacks is that there's no fathers in the home, which is not true. There's plenty of successful black couples that have children. There's plenty of black couples that split up but still have a father that's actively involved. It's not like racist, right? To just look at black people and go, well, that's the source of all their problems, is that the men are scum. That's not, and the women are terrible. It's can't possibly be racist to say that. In fact, I would say that exactly what I'm talking about is where the problem is. All of the socio-political shit that black people face, and again, I'm talking on an average scenario in the United States, the socioeconomic shit that they face makes it difficult for one person to have all of the time and resources to effectively be the same kind of parent as a double income household with lots of love and care and cookies and shit. That's not because, the man's bad or the woman's dumb or any of that shit. It's because they're struggling, like all of us. Come the fuck on, Sargon, you wanker. Yeah, that guy skeeves me. First off, I want to say thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Thank you to my patrons that support me on Patreon. I am a little streamer, and these people are all really awesome for supporting me. Thank you to I Am Canadian. Special huge thanks go to my one prophet, Shithead Dave Anderson. And of course, my final tier of supporters is the Gods. This tier is the most expensive and likely to never have any members, but Patreon really told me I should have one, so it's true, I guess. There are no gods. I try to put up stuff at least once a week, and I live stream every Saturday at noon Mountain Time on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, like an old man. Again, thanks for watching, and have a kick-ass day.